Okay, so last week we discussed about the top 5 mistakes that companies and businesses do when it comes to succession planning. Now, I was going through an HBR article, a Harvard Business Review article, which referred to another PwC study, I think around 2016, which found out that in Fortune 500 companies or global CXOs, when a CXO leaves a company, unplanned, succession is not planned, approximately $1.8 billion of shareholder value is lost. When a CXO leaves a company which is unplanned, the shareholder value goes down by $1.8 billion. Now, yours is a small company, so might be small impact, but there is negative impact anytime you have a unplanned leadership attrition, right? So if you believe that is not of importance to you, succession is not something that is important to you, then as usual, feel free to quit the video. But if you think this is something that is of strategic importance to a business owner, a corporate CXO, or an entrepreneur or a founder, then let's begin. In today's session, I'm going to share with you two strategies, or you can say atomic habits or organizational practices that you can take back and deploy inside your company to take your succession planning from formal and structured to effective. Okay? So the first one I have in mind for you, and yes, before I share them with you, this is going to take a lot of mental space, so pay attention to this. Okay? And each of these individually might be effective, but when they are implemented as complementary processes, implemented together, they are outstanding. The results will be outstanding. Okay? The first one is what I call the Succession Conclave. It's a 3-day event. It happens inside your company twice in a year. So every 6 months, you have to have a Succession Conclave. What happens here is all those successors, we talked about the 4 layers for which you have to plan your succession: mid-management team, senior management team, leadership team, and you have your executive leadership team, right? Mid-management, senior management, leadership, executive leadership. All of those people who are actually going through successor planning program, they're going through trainings, coaching, mentoring sessions, and blah, 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 right? They have to take part in a 3-day event called a Successor Conclave, where they are actually given a real world business challenge that your business is going through, or one of your competitors' business is going through, that you anticipate might happen inside your company, right? Or a market challenge, or a regulation has changed and you have to think about ways to minimize its impact, or changes in the market space, changes in the global and local economy, something, right? Some business, something that is challenging your business. You have to take that and put that business challenge to this successor group. They will have 3 days to come up with, 2.5 days to come up with a strategy and a clear execution plan. When they are done, they have to present their strategy and the execution plan along with the business challenge to 3 groups of people. Group 1 here would be the stakeholders group. This will have representation from your board of directors, from your customers, maybe your top 2 customers, some representation from there, and maybe your investors. So when the successors are presenting their strategy, the business challenge, and this execution plan, this team's primary responsibility is to measure the strategic alignment of the solution that we are discussing. Okay? The second team here, to whom this successor have to pitch their strategy and the execution plan is a team of peers, right? Maybe senior managers that work with you, or maybe your bosses also, maybe the leadership team members also. You present to them, and what they evaluate you on primarily, basically, is collaboration and influence. How collaborative the execution is, and when it is influential in terms of a strategy and execution, it's easy to implement, right? When it's not that influential, people have a lot of questions, there are ambiguities, and there is a lot of resistance instead of acceptance. So how collaborative and how influential this strategy is and the execution plan is, the second team of peers have to evaluate it. So stakeholder group, peer group is done. Last group is the group of direct reportees of these successors, people who directly report to them, and the skip level reportees. Why you have to present to them the business challenge, the strategy, and the execution plan is it builds trust, transparency. What is the business challenge? How someone is going through? Who are the successors? Excuse me. Who are the successors being prepared for the next role? Everything becomes clear, and that's why this transparency leads to a lot of trust, right? So this is what happens in the 3 days, 2.5 days to come up with a strategic solution and an execution plan. And half of the day you present it to 3 different groups. Okay, and are there rules? Of course, there are rules. If a successor has not attended at least 2 succession conclaves, they're not ready for the promotion. And 2 succession conclaves in the last 12 months. If somebody has not attended 2 succession conclaves in the last 12 months, they're not ready for the promotion. Even if the executive leadership or leadership spot is open, they are not ready for that. Somebody else has to take that place. Okay, that's the rule, clear-cut rule. Now, one more thing I want to touch upon is how do you evaluate if you're in the stakeholder group, let's say, or if you're in the peer group, right? How do you evaluate these successors and their strategy and the execution plan? On what criteria? The first one, of course, is decisiveness in the face of ambiguity. Because when you are actually making a strategic decision, most of the time you will not have all the data. And whatever data you might have, the accurateness of that data is also questionable, right? So how do you decisively take action in the face of ambiguity? That's something you have to measure these successors on, right? I hope it's clear. The second factor would be stakeholder empathy. When somebody is coming up with a strategy to be executed, have they thought about all the stakeholders that are going to be impacted by the execution of the strategy? For example, have they thought about the investors, partners, vendors, customers, and the employees, right? So that should be checked. More about that some other time, but that is a factor that you must check. The third factor that you must check while doing this evaluation of the strategy and the execution plan is value alignment. The strategy and the execution plan, are they aligned with the organization values or not? Are they going to be in tune with the organization's culture or not? Because if it's not aligned with the organization's culture, there's a very good chance that the strategy and the execution plan both are going to fail. Check for that. The fourth factor that you can check for is adaptability quotient. The strategy that is being proposed, is it going to be adaptable as the factors in the market change, or as the factors inside the company and the business change, as the business evolves? Are these going to be systems that are scalable, profitable, and sustainable, or they are not going to be adaptable at all? You have to check for that as well. So these are the 4 factors you should check for if you are in the stakeholders team, or if you are the guy who is, above them, the successors, right? So take care of these things in mind. So that's all about the rules and the evaluation criteria and the process of conducting the 3 day succession conclave, right? So that's there. The second one, which has to go in conjunction, in complement with this process, is what I call a 1 year succession sprint. Now, in 1 year succession sprint, what happens is you can remember this as 1236 or as 1236. Okay, your choice. So in this 12-month, the successors. So basically, how this works is every senior manager, leadership team member, and executive leadership team member, they nominate. These are the people who could succeed me, right? So once they have nominated, we have a pool of successors, right? Who will be from mid management to senior management, from senior management to leadership, and from leadership to executive leadership. Now, all of these people will go through this 12-month sprint. As I said, 1, 2, 3, 6. Let's understand. First, one thing they have to do is come up with the innovation project which will help the company achieve a strategic objective. This could be a product innovation, this could be a process innovation, or this could be a business model innovation altogether, right? So, how the company can add more sources of revenue to the business or reduce the cost of a particular product or a service or whatever. So it has to be a innovation project that has strategic alignment with the company's business objectives, sustainable objectives, financial objectives, or whatever, right? It has to be strategically aligned innovation project, and it must get a green light from the management of the company within the 12 months. Yes, we understand this is a great way, this project is a great way to convert an idea, whether it's a product idea, process idea, or a business idea, doesn't matter, idea, take that idea into generate revenue from that idea. It's a fantastic innovation project. We give it a go ahead. So that's first. Two here. So one is innovation project. Two stands for 2 rotations in 12 months. That's what I recommend mandatorily. So let's say you have a marketing executive, right? A marketing executive in this 12-month sprint should spend 6 months in sales and 6 months in operations, getting a perspective of how these things work together, right? So that's what I call 2 strategic rotations. So first is the innovation project, second is 2 strategic rotations. If you are into ops, then you should spend 6 months in sales and marketing, right? Or HR or some other function. So that is 2. And come to 3. 3 means in these 6 months that you are spending in sales or marketing, you have to at least complete 3 projects in the 12 months, which are of strategic importance to that department and to the business overall. It's not that you're going to sales and just sitting there and doing nothing. No, you have to deliver strategic results, right? So that's the objective. So that's 3 projects that are aligned with the department's goals and your business goals, right? So you have to deliver projects there. And 6 is 6 strategic decisions you have to take during these 12 months. So you will not only be shadowing your leaders, you will be given opportunities to make decisions, strategic decisions, whenever the situation and condition arises, and you will be given the responsibility to take a decision. And your boss or your, of course, your boss evaluates this decision and accepts this decision. So there has to be 6 strategic decisions. So 1 innovation project that must be accepted, 2 strategic rollouts or rotations, 3 strategic projects you must deliver, and 6 strategic business decisions you must make. That's what 1, 2, 3, 6 means. That's what you are supposed to do in the 12-month period in the successor sprint, which I call the 1 year succession sprint. Why this works? Three reasons. First, it has the sponsor accountable. They have nominated the successor, so they have to prove that they are worth the training, the mentoring, the coaching, the whole process that they are going through. So accountable is the sponsor. Second, here we are not talking about shadowing your leader. We are talking about strategic deliverables. 3 projects I mentioned, right? So strategic deliverables makes it work, right? The other thing that makes it work is experiential rehearsal, right? You are actually going through the experience of the sales guy or the marketing guy or the ops guy or the HR guy. So you are getting experiential learning, right? That's what makes it work. It's not only theory you are studying in training room, right? So that's why this works, and that's how it is designed actually. So are there rules about this? Yes, there are rules. First rule is a department cannot enter into the next fiscal year until and unless all of the successors in there have their successor scorecard ready. The mentor or the guy who has nominated the successors, they have to complete the successor scorecard. Only then they get to enter into the next fiscal year. The next fiscal budget is allocated, the next fiscal goals and objectives are assigned, and things like that. Until and unless a department has all of its leaders submit their successor scorecard, they cannot enter the next fiscal year. Also, I would recommend to add quarterly reviews for these successor programs. Quarterly reviews which will contain mostly the mentor, of course, or the sponsor, of course. Then you have HR representative, they should be included there. Then you should have one more independent observer. Say I'm a sales guy going through this whole 1 year program. Then there should be somebody from ops who is sitting there and observing what I'm doing every quarter, what kind of progress am I making, and stuff like that. So independent observer should be there. Lastly, self-evaluation, right? What I have been doing, how am I growing or not growing, things like that, right? So that's something that you must do. As a rule, it should be there, quarterly reviews, because at the end, if you sit for reviewing, it's not very fruitful, not very effective. So quarterly reviews, that includes a sponsor, the HR member, the independent observer, and self-assessment. So the last part is, during this 1 year successor sprint and during these quarterly reviews, what do you measure, right? What you measure is first autonomy delta. How much autonomy this guy is getting, the successor. Initially, if he was responsible for 20 decisions in the business, has he or she gone to 25 decisions, 27 decisions, or 30 decisions? How much of delta in autonomy has they gained? That's something you have to measure. Second one is called execution maturity. Are they still managing stuff, or have they moved to leading people to deliver or perform in order to achieve a strategic objective or a vision, right? So are they still managing stuff? Are they moving into leadership roles? So that's called execution maturity. The next one is called strategic fluency. Have they started thinking of systems in terms of systems, or are they still thinking in terms of components, right? So are they still thinking in an ops way, in a tactical way, or have they started thinking strategically in terms of systems that are scalable, that are profitable, and that are sustainable for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 25 years, right? So that's strategic thinking. That's what you have to evaluate them on. And the last aspect that you have to measure them on is called fellowship quotient. In the process of working with different peers, in the process of working with different teams, how much informal influence have they built? That's called fellowship quotient. That is something I believe should be measured when you are talking about successors or taking managers into leadership positions, right? So these are the 4 things you measure inside the quarterly reviews of a 1 year successor sprint. First one is autonomy delta. Second one is execution maturity. Third one is I call strategic fluency, and the fourth one is I call fellowship quotient. These are the things you have to measure. I understand for a small video, I have packed a lot of value. If you have questions, you have queries, the mail ID, my mail ID is on the screen. drop me a note and we can have a discussion on this. And if you have any queries, questions, thoughts, comments, add in the comment section. Let's have a discussion there. But in short, that's what I had for you in today's video. A 1 year successor sprint and a bi-yearly, or basically twice in a year, once in every 6 months, what you have to have is a successor conclave, which is kind of a 3-day competition, right? So those are the two things that work hand in hand in terms of creating or making your strategic succession plan not only formal but much more effective. So that's all I had for you today in this video. I'll see you in the next one whenever that happens. Till then, take care and be limitless.